after that satellite imagery of the ICBM silos came out, you saw the Chinese propaganda apparatus threatening to nuke Japan once they talked about defending Taiwan. So already they're pulling out that card.
Yes.
That this can be a threat.
I mean, think about that. They're maybe not even filled with nuclear weapons at this point in time. And they're already changing the rhetoric to, if you try to screw with us, we're going to nuke you. If you oppose us in any way, if you support Taiwan, we will nuke you. Wow. And you haven't seen that on ABC, CBS, or NBC Evening News.
I saw a great story about a bear that got loose in a Ralph's.
Okay. I mean, that is big news. It was a Ralph's.
It was a Ralph's. It was a tiny bear, too.
Oh, tiny bear.
Mm-hmm.
This is news, Chris.
This is. Anyways, I've completely forgotten about what we were talking about.
Nuclear war?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jim, why do you think we're not talking about it?
Well, that's another story of, where is America's national security, foreign policy leadership today? What are they focused on? So all I know is what I see, coming out of the administration the day after the president's speech talking about Afghanistan. The next day's speech was about, COVID. And we need to have the Department of Education using everything in their power to go after states that that try to keep people from wearing masks. So we have teaching unions telling us they're not going to go back in the classroom unless children are vaccinated and wear masks or double masks. We have cities close to where you are in Philadelphia that said for government workers, if you're not vaccinated, you have to wear 2 masks. We have cities like New York and LA that say if you don't get vaccinated, you can't eat in a restaurant. I just saw something right before we came on in Paris. Apparently, they're now saying in some place that if you don't have a vaccination, you can't go into a grocery store. So we're focused on that kind of stuff. We're focused on, drag queen story hour at the library, the public library, and forced transgenderism. We're focused on things that are not right. And so why would anybody be concerned that China's going to have a nuclear arsenal as big as ours or bigger? It seems incredible to say that, given my lifetime and my experience and the apparatus that I worked in and existed in with thousands and millions of other, patriotic Americans that worked to defend our nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we're now not paying attention to some of the most significant threats. And when things do happen and go south, like what we just saw this week, and is still going on in Afghanistan, we don't seem to be willing to get inspired. I was at a conversation with somebody today, and we were talking about, America came together on December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was attacked. You all remember coming together as a nation after 9/11. I view what's happened in Afghanistan and these nuclear silos. It's not a one specific event. I think the fall of Afghanistan, you could say in 11 hours or so isn't a single event. But is America rallying around that together? And some of the polls suggest that, many, many people are very, very upset with what's going on in the high 70s, maybe high 80s or low 80s percentage-wise. So that's a good sign. But what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to come together and put aside these squabbles, put aside this focus on what I consider to be non-essential, non-life-threatening issues and get back to defending the nation?
Well, you mentioned this earlier, that China is building this tapestry. And how do you light it on fire? How do you light it on fire?
Well, there's a lot of things that we have to do across this whole of government. And part of it is we have to get back to serious assessments of what the threat is. So if we see the Chinese building a Navy and an Air Force and a strategic rocket force, and we think that we can just compete with that by having distributed network warfare, and you can have 300 ships and we'll have 30, but we'll be able to defeat you because we have super sensors and networks. And no, that doesn't work. History has shown that doesn't work. And so until we get back to kind of nuts and bolts kinds of approach of we have to have a strong military defense, a physical defense. That's where I initially always focus on. a lot of our colleagues that we know focus on the economic arena, and that China is still economically inferior to the United States, smaller than the United States, and so that we should focus on lighting the fire in the economic arena. What the previous administration was attempting to do with sanctions and tariffs, those initial first phase tariffs were only just the first phase. They were supposed to go to a second phase if China didn't comply, and China didn't comply. But are we going to a second phase? No, we have the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Wall Street, Larry Fink at BlackRock telling the administration and Wall Street, no, you should triple down, double down, invest as much money as you have into China's markets. We're not following through. We're not really serious about the threat. So we're going to give them millions and billions of dollars, and China will take some percentage of that, 10, 12% of it or whatever, and pump that into continuing to build their military dominance, which will then be used to blackmail Japan, Taiwan, and other nations to kowtow to do what they say. And eventually, ultimately, all that power will be used to pressurize us. So we need to get back to competing with China as just a strategic competitor, but a strategic enemy. We need to look at them as a strategic enemy because they stand opposed to the values that we stand for as Americans and those that believe in freedom and liberty. And so we have to make sure that we're not sending all of our wealth to China. Cut the money off. They need food in China. They have 1.4 billion people. They don't have that much arable land compared to the amount of people that they have. So why are we selling them food without some kind of conditions? And if they don't meet those conditions, then we turn the food off. Oh, that's terrible. What about the poor people that aren't part of the party? That would be mean to them. Well, guess what? When you start turning off food from people, that tends to get to the leadership's ears, as Bloomberg said, I think, several in the last year or so.
When he said Xi Jinping has to listen to his constituents.
Yeah. Now, I thought that was absurd of what Bloomberg said, but in a sense, if you start causing mass starvation amongst the Chinese people, they're not going to sit by and tell Xi Jinping, hey, keep holding out to the United States, and they're going to do something. So we have some room to maneuver to light that tapestry on fire. We have resources that they need, but we keep consuming. Americans keep consuming things that are bought in China. We keep pumping money back into them. We keep giving them oxygen to live, and we need to take the oxygen away. We need to have a strong military. We need to have our economy decoupled from China. There's other places in the world that we can get things and have things manufactured and sell things ourselves. And then we need to have a campaign that goes after them intellectually and talks about the perversion of their belief system, the evil of communism, and what communism has wrought over the years and what it ultimately leads to. And we don't do a good job of that. We don't tackle that. The previous administration was getting around to it. Secretary Pompeo's speech at the Nixon Library was a really good attempt, and the vice president and others were making speeches, but it has to be a national campaign. It has to be a national effort in our schools to teach our own children about it. When I see polls that say that American youth think that socialism or communism isn't that bad, I have to ask myself, where have we gone wrong in our school system that we can allow that to percolate up over the years? Well, the last piece, just to frame it out, would be obviously in a diplomatic arena. We have to work with our allies. We have to be close with our allies. And I know this is an area where the previous administration took a lot of hit for America first and all that. And I got it. I understand that people didn't like that. But look what just happened in Afghanistan. We just pulled out, and it was a NATO fighting force there. And we didn't even inform NATO. So for all the accusations and all the scorn and all the endless attacks that we saw for 4 years about how the Orange Man and his tweets were, upsetting NATO, did we ever do anything like this during those 4 years? Did we ever take a military maneuver without consultation? Did we shut down travel because of COVID? Sure, okay. Yeah, there's some things that happen. But in something this fundamental, regardless of whatever happened with Trump, the idea that you would take a maneuver and pull military forces out that are part of a NATO fighting force without informing NATO is shocking. It's absolutely incomprehensible. I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State. I mean, these people are all supposedly experts. They're the best of the best, the most educated, have the best resumes, have been around and doing these things for so long, and have all the Rolodexes and have all the connections. And they didn't make those calls. It's incomprehensible. And it's devastating to America's credibility. So how do you light a fire on a tapestry that's been soaked in water for 3 or 4 weeks and you get one match? That's kind of where I feel like we're at right now. That tapestry is soaking wet, and we're going to try to light it on fire. It's going to be really, really hard.